soon as I get this is the official copy. Sorry. There you go.
Okay. Let's see. I guess the acting chairman for Marshall's not here tonight. I would call the meeting to order, the March 27, 2018 Economic Development Committee regular session meeting. First item is staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff report's going to be fairly quick. We've got a lot of small things going on and several big ones getting ready to start moving. I anticipate the final plat approval for the Smithville Marketplace stuff will be coming forward in the May Planning Commission meeting so they can start selling their lots and begin the actual sewer, water, and other construction. I also anticipate that we will have a new retail spot close to Quick Trip coming at that same meeting. They're working on their site plan stuff there now, and several subdivisions for new houses are coming down the pike. A couple of other things as it relates to where we're sitting. Obviously, I'm going to skip ahead real quick because Leah reported she's not going to be able to make it here, but the school district and she are almost complete on all of the preparatory work related to the job fair. It's going to be May 7th at the school. The school is working on a new website associated just for that purpose. That should be coming pretty soon. And then, so that's the chamber report portion of it. I would like to go back to the regular staff report. In order to expedite our processes, instead of having a separate line or separate agenda item for the communication and strategy plan that's working with Native Digital, I've asked them to make their presentation during staff report, so we'll get it started. You have the slides that in front of you here. The citizens over there have a copy as well. So if it's fine with you all, I'll refer it over to our consultants, Native Digital, and they can start making the here's where we are update.
That's good. Okay, that's a good place to hear him.
If that's comfortable for you.
You heard all right on the,
Yeah, if you come up a little closer.
hold up here then, Mike.
Sure. Trying to walk you guys through this. So if you look at page 3 here, you've got a timeline in front of you. You can see where we're at. Just the yellow line circling the 3 steps that we're getting started on with communication strategy, media planning, fine, and then direction we're getting ready with the ag creative. So that's where we're at today. You're always going to see the primary objective present here, just make sure we're all on track. So again, primary goal, increase retail sales and awareness. You're going to see some more details around that $20K media budget and where that's going to be allocated. If you skip into each slide with the campaign flights, you see that pricing right here. That is largely the same as what we presented last month. There was one change that was recommended that we agreed with of allocating additional spend into the suburban leisure in the month of October. And so that has been made, otherwise it's the same.
Okay.
As we get into the next slide labeled social media target profiles, if you remember on the last presentation, we had the map that outlined the rural targeting versus the suburban targeting, as well as the business. And you'll see here that with social media targeting, you can select those cities to be included into that pool. So these are those cities that we had outlined that will be in that target. So when we run ads on social media, if it's a leisure ad, these are the cities that will see that. Business ad, these are the cities. Rural, those are the cities that will see that. So if you see anything missing or anything that shouldn't be in there, you can let us know.
If I could interrupt you, let us know, would that be best handled via an email if we review it later?
If you can compile that feedback together and deliver as one group, that would be the best.
Okay, okay.
That would make sure that we're not getting two emails and there might be
A conflict.
discrepancy. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so I'll
That'll
ask,
flow through you.
if you guys send it all to me, I'll coordinate it and get it to them.
Perfect.
That way, if you guys think there's something missing, something needs to be added on to any of the cities, we'll go from there.
Yep.
Thank you.
The next slide gets into further demographics on those profiles. So again, as we take out a social media ad, these are the ages of people who would see this, the genders of people who would see this, and then interests that they've specified. Basically saying that they have interest on these social media profiles. You'll notice that the age range is fairly wide. With leisure, it skews a little younger. With business, 30 to 50, rural, 30 to 60. We're doing both genders for leisure and business. For rural, we're focusing on head of household female. So one of the tricks here is that to prevent just shooting this message to everybody and hitting a message and hitting people who aren't basically prime prospects for this, you're trying to narrow it down to the people who are really going to gravitate and hold on to that. So we're trying to shoot, not with a shotgun, but with a rifle. We're trying to have as tight of a group as we can, and that's why this list of interests is as narrow as it is. There's no immediate questions there. We can move into the next page, which is the business LinkedIn specifics. So when we're talking specifically to potential business owners who might want to relocate or add an additional location in Smithville, LinkedIn, we can look at a couple different things. We can look at their job function. Are they in business development, consulting, entrepreneurship, finance, legal, marketing, media communications, operations, sales? What industry sectors are they? Of all the different industry sectors, these are the ones that we think are best fit for someone who might be relocating to Smithville. So I'm going to take a look at that list and see if that matches your thoughts. And then in terms of the size of that company, we're basically saying anything that's over 11 employees up to about 500 employees is what we're targeting. So if you want to go to smaller individual companies or much bigger corporations, bigger than 500, we can expand that, but this was our recommendation. So if that looks good, that's the social media targeting and who we'll be targeting with those. Next up is the billboard details. You'll see options here that we have for locations of billboards. The 5 highlighted or circled are the ones that we're recommending. On the page after that, you'll see photos of those particular billboards. You might even recognize a few of those locations. So what we're looking for is billboards in the Northland that have favorable pricing and enough people driving by them. So on that page with the chart, you'll see the actual locations, when they become available, how many people on a monthly basis are driving by age 18 and above, what the current billboard is, what we were able to negotiate it down from, or the savings that we were able to get, and then what it would cost all in on that billboard with production of it, and then also to run for either 4 weeks or 8 weeks. So 3 of them are a month long, 2 of them are 2 months long. The 2 month long are the ones that have the most traffic. So those are the ones that we'll have to keep up for 2 months. So over a course of that 2 months, you'll have 2.2 million impressions of cars driving by at a total cost of $3,400. So the original budget called for 3,000. So that exceeds it by 400, and we'll just find the 400 to take out of social media or something like that. But I think it's well worth it, especially given the negotiations that we were able to make savings on. Any questions on the billboard piece?
So that's June and July is when we're talking here.
Yeah, so that was our ideal target, and then based on the availability will kind of dictate that, but it actually lines up. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
should work out.
Okay.
So we were happy that we could get 5 different billboards, that way people can kind of be seeing them from different angles and see that there's something going on here. The next print item is Ingram's Magazine. So again, this one is where the billboard is more general, and that can appeal to anybody. Ingram's is going to be a specific business message. So there's a few stats here on who the leadership of Ingram's is, if you're not familiar. A lot of, definitely the business community, a lot of higher up in the business community. Cost per 1,000 readers is $44. That's a good amount for us. We have yet to negotiate if we can drive price down on this, so we'll see. No promises yet. The full page ad exceeds what our budget is, so we will see if we can't do a favorable half page or get the half page moved up. But that's basically the plan, is to move forward with Ingram's and see what we can get on the ad rate there.
So is this 4,000 per issue? What is their issue, Ryan? Is it monthly or is it?
I believe monthly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
They've got a fairly large readership, as I understand, and it's really focused into the business side of what we're looking.
There's a dumb question. Is there like a preferred season for, trying to recruit business?
It's when the businesses are wanting to come, so it's a year-round deal. I think the strategy is hit it on, to be quite frank, the three they've identified are the three biggest Ingram's books they run per year. So you're gonna get the most. I mean, everybody's looking for the top private companies or the business leader stuff, because it's who's who and what's what. And then the other one with the Destination KC, it goes out a broader reach.
So one way to look at this is, some people like to look at what's your cost per thousand people viewing this. And we've looked at that for both Billboard, LinkedIn, and Ingram's. So LinkedIn and Ingram's are pretty comparable in the and if you think about reaching 1,000 people, you're somewhere between $35 per 1,000 people that you reach, $44. Billboard is cheaper, just is. So you can reach a lot of people, but if you think about how much you pay attention to a LinkedIn ad versus a billboard, that's usually the reason why. So there's recall factors and those types of things that drive those prices. So I wouldn't say that there's one that is this killer deal that you need to do. It's trying to pick a couple places to place your bets and get good coverage in those three. So we feel good about this.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
On this, backing up just a shade back here to your billboard stuff, is that already written in stone? The reason I question that is when you look at these places, and as if everybody would just kind of read those, there's nothing there like 435 and I-29,
Yeah.
I-35. How come we're not getting anything that is in our immediate, that's going to drive business of people that are close to us? These are people that, I agree, they've got a lot of traffic, but realistically, are those people the people that are going to come up here? Or are we going to get the people that are coming off the highway, like, they're coming down from St. Joe, down 29, or they're coming down I-35 from the whole area, north of that, like Iowa, and we're trying to drive those people into the lake, into the downtown, into the, what chose that versus something of that order? Or is that too broad a question?
No, it's a good question. I will say the other alternative we had looked at, by the way, was we had looked at, there was one, what I would call maybe prime real estate billboard that was closer to the airport. And that price for that one was even more than, just that one billboard was even more than these five. So we looked at that. We did not look at north of this area, which is kind of what you're talking about. So if you would like us to compare and see if we can get favorable rates and the impressions is something that we're happy with, we could look at that.
Well, it would even be like south of that, like, and I understand prime, maybe our budget doesn't allow that, maybe we need to save up for that. But even coming up like from the south, like on 435, like you come past the Legends and so forth, up 435 that away, that traffic could be funneled into us. If you was coming up I-29, like say from Grandview and so forth, you're coming up 435, that direction, that traffic could be funneled into us, like past Worlds of Fun and, on up that. And maybe those areas are just too expensive for us to advertise in, and realistically, I just wonder what we're going to get from, Vivian Road and I-35. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I just put myself in the car and I'm driving and I'm like, oh, Smithville. Okay.
Well, I think the question I would have related to that, I don't disagree with you, Phil. What's the ad gonna be?
Yeah.
Is it come to the lake, or is it move your business to Smithville?
This one is suggested to be a broad appeal message. So one that would work with just about anybody who sees it. So the billboards weren't meant to be a specific niche. It was to cross all niches because
Okay.
when you're throwing it out there to the masses, you want the broad message.
Okay.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Ingrams, those are much more targeted. Those are real specific calls to action.
So with a broader one, then I think it's got, I don't disagree with your thought on getting the different market locations. They may be a little more focused to getting visitors to come here to shop.
So with the process we went through to arrive at this, we have a good relationship with Outfront Media who supplies all those. We gave them the brief, told them the range of people that we're looking at, and these were the options. Those red dots were the options for us to select from. So either we need to see if they have inventory beyond that for us to take advantage of those rates that we're able to get.
Is that, and maybe you answered this question, and if I'm repeating, I'm sorry, I'm only asking because I don't know. Did they only give us that because that's what our budget would allow?
I don't know. I don't know if they have inventory beyond that, or if they said, oh, this is the market you're looking for, this is within that market, and this is within the budget.
Because some of those going outside that distance might be Lamar, might be
Right.
different companies that own the billboards.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, we really don't care whether we're renting from Lamar or whether we're renting from.
It just depends on if they
Just-
can offer the same favorable discounts.
Right.
Out front, we had pretty deep.
I mean, that looks good, this looks great, these, yeah, hey, we're getting 5 spots, and myself, I think that's pretty reasonable, but I'm just wondering if those are the 5 spots that in reality that we're gonna get 30, how much was that, 3,400? Yeah, are we really gonna get that much out of that at the end of the day? I mean, I think we're gonna get a lot of impressions, I think a lot of people are gonna see it, but are those the people that we're really targeting?
And that, ultimately, that would be my question with out front of the red dots that they've got on here, associated with their locations. Do they have demographic information for the travelers? Is that, I mean, that's gonna be hard for them.
Yeah.
But if that's where they're throwing their numbers on.
At this point, all we have is impressions of 18 plus.
Okay, so it's not people that might be interested in any aspect of what we're talking about, but somebody in the age range
I would
we're
be
looking.
suspicious of
Yeah.
whatever information they fed us
Yeah,
related to that.
on that, me too, but that's what I was wondering is if they had that data and that's how
Billboard
they
companies
based
are
it.
trying to do this.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything that I believe in yet.
It's hard to, from a billboard, I think it would be very hard to determine who's in the car and what their income is, et cetera.
So let us go back to out front and see if they have inventory wider than this that we think could be interesting, and then come back.
How quick would this be taking place? Because our dates, what was when we go back to that date, are we gonna get into a time crunch there?
Possibly, but this can be an email. You can find out very quickly, so.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Bill. I mean, I look at this here, I mean, and maybe I don't quite tell here, but if I'm going up 35, I might see 2 of these, bang, bang. Or maybe they're all one's off the highway.
I'm not sure which way they point.
So, I mean, the density of these maybe, if one of them was moved up 29
Two theories of approach on that. I particularly like it when you see I'm hoping that someone sees Ingram, sees Billboard, maybe sees a second billboard, because now you see it.
Yeah.
So.
Now it
there's
sticks.
Two
Yeah.
theories of approach there. One is, saw it once, I'm good. I tend to think that a cell takes about 5 touches, and so if you get a couple of those, it's necessary.
Thank you.
So we'll make it to do on our side, so we reach out to the front and just see what their reaches to. If it turns out that it's not further, we might look into someone like a Lamar. I don't know if we'll get the same rates or what those will look like, so we'll just see. Okay, so if we're good on Ingrams, the last thing I'd say on Ingrams is that we're not going to hit the May deadline with approved creative. So what we're recommending is the June Ingrams 100. Those issues tend to do well, and so I would shoot for June. If not, I would shoot for September, knowing that those issues tend to do well for them.
And what's the 100 top businesses in Kansas City or?
This is private companies, so.
Yeah, in the metro
Right.
general.
I can see that. Good magazines to see.
And it's certainly in the market of the people we're looking for.
And as it says, I always take mine and I circle something and pass it on to someone else who reads
Right.
it, so
Yeah,
it's,
Yeah,
pass along.
there's
right,
always
so.
good content.
yeah.
All right, so then moving into the creative planning. So we have an allocation of hours that we are going to try to stretch as far as we can for you guys. If you look here on this first page, we have what we would like to suggest is one long form video, long form being about 1:30 or so, shooting that footage and being able to edit it where it's slightly two different videos. One of them ends with a call to action that's more business oriented, one that ends with the call to action that's more suburban leisure oriented. We're trying to make two out of one here. At the same time, we want to take the footage that we shoot there and create 3 short vignettes being like a little 15-second little B-roll clip, and editing those to where you could use those in social media advertising. So instead of just a static photo sitting there, a little video that catches your eye a little bit more. The reason we want to do 3 is we want to have one for business, suburban, and rural. So that shot list to be determined, we've got a starter list going here on the page after this. We're going to try to take some photography while we're doing the shoot. It's going to be difficult because we are trying to do this video shoot in 2 days, which is very quick. But we're going to attempt to do photography at the same time. So our goal there would be to get 10 usable photographs out of that 2-day shoot. Primarily showing suburban leisure type footage. From that shoot, that will supply a lot of what we need for a lot of these different touch points. So the billboard could potentially use some of that photography, could use stock photography if the concept calls for it, but our goal is to get photography that we could use as an option for billboard. Same with any additional social media ads that are needed. We're outlining 3 there for each audience, and then of course you've got our 1 print ad, which hopefully can use that photography as well, and then that would be a business focus. So under message, that's not what the copy is going to say, that's just going to be the point that we're going to try to get across.
Does any of this come into the businesses, not necessarily advertising for, but touching on what's already here?
Yeah, I think so.
What? Well, the last page probably doesn't. I'm looking in here, and I see that we're really trying to hammer getting new business to show up. You know, I don't know if, I know we do need to grow as businesses and stuff, but it seems like we're hitting that on the head several different ways constantly throughout this whole thing. And I don't see the come explore what's here already. Unless it's worked into something, I don't know what subcategory it falls under.
I would say when you see everything in the end, you'll think the opposite is probably true, that we didn't hit the business as directly as maybe some would think. My approach, I think, has always been that if you show that people want to be here, then that works for leisure and business.
Yeah.
If you have a real businessy type ad, you've turned off the leisure, and sometimes the businesses think that's boring.
Yeah.
So it's too informational. So I think if we can get across, that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people in our position would say you guys can't afford this video, it's going to take up too much of your time, not worth it. I think you got to show people wanting to be here, and I think video does it stronger than anything else. So I think if you can raise the perception and show that people want to be here, I think you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So in terms of the time allocation on that next page, you'll see that it's going to take about 40 hours of pre-production to get everything planned, coordinate locations, talent, shoot, take about 50 hours, so that's 1 producer, 1 videographer, 1 photographer. It'll take 70 hours to edit and retouch. You see all the deliverables that come out of that. So that builds your asset library that you guys will have and continue to use for a few years beyond just this assignment. And then the time that it'll take to produce all of the creative, get you guys' approval, on what we're doing for billboards, social ads, and then print ads. So there are a couple remaining needs. We can't afford talent.
So if
pay
you
talent.
use some talent at this table, would that help?
I have a face for radio.
If we were doing podcasts, we'd be set.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So we could use, we, because we're local, this is nice, we can bring some of our own talent, but if you guys can lend a hand or point us in the right direction with local talent, that could be helpful. If you know of ways to get photography assets that you think would be on par with what we're wanting to do, any local photographers, we would take those recommendations as well, just to supplement the library that we're going to create. And it should also be noted that this will max out the creative time that's allocated for this budget. So if there's any thought that there might be other little one-off requests that come along, that would just have to replace a piece of something that's been allocated. But if there needs to be like a retainer hours for little one-off things, we just need to work that in somehow, so.
I have a local, I'll give you a local photographer
Okay.
name as soon as we're
Okay.
done.
And if we decided that we wanted to use existing photo assets or use local photographers, you know, and we all agreed that that was the right thing to do, you could, put photo credits or something in that, or to make sure that they're on board with it since there's no real budget for it. So on the next page, we have the planning. So this would be our next steps. If everybody feels good about what we're going to produce, in April, our next steps are to create the shot list that's going to show some of the locations we're going to go, come up with some sort of concept or script of what this video is, make sure that those locations are good with us filming there, and the times that we're going to be there are going to be right, make sure that we know who's going to be in this, that represents well. And then in May, hopefully with green trees and green grass, we'll be able to shoot everything over a course of 2 days. Those might be 2 days back to back, could be a half day here, half day there. We'll just figure out what the weather wants to do with us. Then we'll edit the footage, edit the photos, and we'll be in a position ready to run video and social channels at the end of May, and have the creative that we needed to get started on the billboard display and print.
So quick question, so I'm a little better understanding and prepared if need be. Are you anticipating you're going to make a April presentation at the EDC that says, here's the proposed shot list, and we'll discuss it then? Okay. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
On the shot list, these are our thought starters. Some of these, as we get down to it, start dipping up our day, we'll find out that we can't make all of these. So prioritizing would be something we'll need to do. If there's some in here that if the group feels strongly that this must be in here, then we'll note that and try to make sure to try to find a way to work that in.
So on the outdoors park and trails, so Wednesday nights at Smoke and Davy Trailhead is when the mountain bike group goes for a ride. So you're most likely to find a group of people, so we can either send a photographer out or,
Yep.
and then
Is that every Wednesday?
yeah,
Okay,
every
great.
Wednesday, 6 o'clock or something like that. And
Cool.
maybe, right now, they're probably trying to get a little earlier so they can
Okay.
get enough riding in before dark.
Okay.
But so when May comes around, when they're doing it,
Yeah, it might be 6 o'clock.
are you coordinating that? Do you
No,
assist in it?
It's Earth Riders is a local club that does it,
Okay.
but I mean, I can get,
Well, my thought is, we could certainly do what we could to, hey, we're gonna have advertising folks out on this
Yeah,
date.
we
As
can
many
do-
of you that can come.
Any events like that,
Yeah.
because it shows a lot of people and it shows there's an energy and
Yeah,
fun
I
stuff.
mean,
that's
it's-
what you need.
And it's
I
cheaper
would
on talent.
expect that you'd most likely have 30 to 40, maybe 50 people out there, so it should be pretty easy to do. And then for the motorcyclists, I just organized a thing with Anita at Soiree to do brunch every Saturday morning, a
Okay.
biker brunch. So hopefully Saturday mornings, we're just starting that on the 10th of April. So maybe by the time you're shooting, we'll have an idea if we're getting a good turnout.
Okay.
That might be an easy place to get
Okay.
a shot.
That's another good one to know. Great. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Okay.
I think there's a mom's running group too, the Win KC
Okay.
Women's Triathlon. somewhere around this time frame too.
The farmer's market, what's that?
Ends in May.
Farmer's market.
It's Wednesday evenings as
Yeah.
well, so
Okay.
that could be a
Makers.
farmers and makers.
Yeah, and it's also our bike night.
Is there any other events in May that are on the calendar?
That would be a Leah deal. She keeps that full-time calendar. I couldn't tell you what's going on tomorrow.
It's a movie night start.
Yeah, it's the third Saturdays, movie nights.
Started last Saturday.
It's an indoor thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is when it's 12 degrees out.
I was in Texas, it was 70 degrees and sunny whenever that was going down.
Yeah, yeah, it was a little colder here. And when you got a bunch of little ones out, but yeah, that's the third Saturday. That one is, I may be able to get a local photographer who, you don't see him in here anymore, but, maybe have her come up and take some photos on one of those Saturdays
What time does that usually start?
around dusk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like a walk-in, drive-in.
yeah,
That would be ideal for like a local photographer to do. On
Yeah.
video, it'd be hard to shoot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
nice.
Something you may want to consider adding to the starter shot list of ideas on the outdoors is maybe golf.
Golf?
I think
Okay.
that's a big draw to the community, so.
Okay,
yeah,
okay. Yep.
yeah, and we got 36 holes out there.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the county does.
And like, well, there's, of course, the people putting boats in and out of the water and,
Yeah.
swim beach.
Yep.
Track club.
Yeah, boating, fishing, yeah, the lake, you got boating, fishing, grilling, and then aerial shot, but you may want to add under the lake the golf, because that's where the course is. It's
Okay.
at the main entrance to the main park.
We might,
So,
if we can add golf there, we might try to include the aerial shot from lake to golf, essentially.
Be a nice aerial shot if you come like across the golf course right onto the lake.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah,
The track club.
That's fine. Okay,
There's a big barbecue contest in April, out there.
okay,
Some good talent there.
okay.
that'd be another time to get Val out.
So what we'll do there is we'll try to gather all of these events where we think we'll have people in action. And then we'll figure out what the best use of those 2 days shooting will be.
I can also bring out my drone to do extra aerial stuff as needed.
Okay. If you have it,
I do.
that's, I mean, we'll take the footage.
Realtors are bound by this.
107, yeah, if I get paid for it. If I get paid for it, that's commercial use.
Well, if we use a video in a commercial setting, that's commercial use.
Then I won't get paid for it.
He's donating.
We'll probably have enough time for it, but if you have extra.
Yeah,
That's why I asked the question. I mean,
Right.
probably right with that.
I've read every single possible thing on it. If you take it, you're bound by the 107 commercial use. 107 license. Yeah.
What about adding to something like Parks and Rec to that? Is that something that,
Oh, down here, like Heritage Park, that would be really good. It's a-
I think a lot of that's gonna be local talent cameras with photographers. If you look at our current Park and Rec's Facebook, we've got tons of pictures. I don't know what kind of camera they need to get the high-quality stuff. I know when we did the ad stuff for Missouri Life last year, we had one photograph out of dozens that was of sufficient quality to be in a print ad. But we can, I'll get you that contact information for her.
What we'll probably end up with is in 2 days, you can count on about 6 really quality locations having decent time spent at those. So if you think about it, in a day, you've got a morning setup and 2 afternoon setups. Everything in between is just real quick grabs. So what we'll end up doing is having to make some hard prioritization around where is going to be the best scenes to kind of show the full comprehensive view. And anything that doesn't get one of those more lengthy scenes of action, we'll try to get little quick scans of like business names and things like that,
Oh, okay.
just to get little quick montage shots.
So that barbecue contest might be good, because you got camping, you got, boating around there, you're gonna have grill,
Yeah.
barbecue, and you're gonna have,
Yeah. Okay.
you may have several in
What
one
was-
area.
Do you remember the date on that one?
It's the second weekend in April.
Okay.
And I can share with Jack, I can get you the details.
Okay.
So
We may-
14th,
that may-
15th?
That may happen before we, are ready. Yeah.
But I may be able to get a local asset
Okay.
photographer to go get
Okay.
some shots. It won't be video, but it'll at least be,
Sure.
You can define what the quality, you know,
Yeah.
quality needs of photography is. I'm sure we can get a number of them.
yeah, that, and ultimately, that's the only, I assume, I was working under the assumption most good cameras would take that quality of a photograph that you need, but apparently some of them aren't as quality as others. What
We
of
could,
that?
if you have a couple of photographers that you're thinking of, we can send specs
Okay,
that they can try to match.
yeah.
Okay. That's great input, thank you for that, guys. So the final piece, that's the bulk of this. The final piece, I would fast forward you to the public relations angles. So we had presented the campaign messaging and then also this calendar of some of the local public relations. But what we put here is, the outreach is wanting to be done on the public relations front. If you remember, we said there was time to allocate to put together that calendar and to come up with starter pitch ideas, and that's about it for the public relations piece. We're not allocating additional time for this, but we did have 3 suggestions here that if outreach was to be done on your side, there could be 3 story ideas here. One being Beyond the Lake, so an itinerary to extend your day trip to Smithville. Up north, a joint article with Weston and others about Casey, what Casey should know about the communities north of the river. And then city close, country closer, out Smithville residents with the best of roads. We thought those might have interest to some of the writers of those publications. I actually think the second one could do well, just to be a little bit more inclusive and make sure your name is mentioned with everybody else. But I think all 3 have merit.
I like number 3.
Yeah. So that's what I have for you guys. Next up, I think the next ad concepts presentation is April 18th. And beyond that, we'll start, scope execution, if not before.
April 18th. Hang on for a second.
Does that match the next meeting?
No, it's gonna be the 24th.
24th, okay.
We are the 4th, aren't we? Yeah, 4th, yeah. 4th Tuesday, so April 24th.
Based on the timeline, you need it.
Would you need it sooner? We can't do it on the 18th because we're gonna have court in here that night. Yeah, we got a board meeting on 17th, so no.
I think if we can work offline on talent and locations, make a little progress there, I think we should be fine.
Okay,
The main thing is just getting these locations determined so we can let them know we're gonna be there if it's a business, making sure we know what business hours we're gonna be there. If it's an event, making sure we've got that planned. The video and photo shoot is the big thing. That's the main. So I think that time will work.
Any additional questions? Anything else in the staff report?
nothing for mine. If you guys are good there, April 30th, 31st, okay, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, thanks a lot.
Okay, so we heard a little bit about the chamber report, he's not here to provide any more information. Next item is the school district report, any report, Tyler?
Yeah, I can comment on a couple of things. First of all, just mentioned April 24th. You guys may not know this, but in the Northland, there is, the Northland Chamber of Commerce sponsors an Excellence in Education banquet. And it's a huge affair at the KCI Expo. And all the districts, you know, in the Northland submit nominations for volunteers of the year for their districts, teachers of the year, and all kinds of different things. And Business of the Year is one of the nominations. And just as one of our EDC members here, Phil Wright, we're nominating Phil Wright for that award for the school district. Phil does a lot for the kids in this community, and whenever somebody needs something in terms of tires for their car or a vehicle itself, Phil's right there and is really, really quick to respond. And so you probably know this about him, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank Phil here with this group for all of his work. And so we will not be here, Phil and I will not be here on April 24th, because we'll be honoring Phil at that event. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Other than that, lots going on. I got the report today. I was not at last month's meeting, and I saw a school district report, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then I recalled a couple of meetings ago, we talked about the school district being on the monthly report. So at this point in time, we have so much more going on than any typical, early spring with all of our construction. And it's not just construction. We are reinventing our school district with the reorganization of the neighborhood schools, and we've had to divide all of our staff up and push them out to to the various elementary schools. It's been a really, really big to-do. And then on top of that, we used to bus, we are now busing our kids to and from the school and their daycare center, the individual daycare centers all over town, right? So when you consider the fact that we'll be in neighborhood schools now, if we continue to do that, that would negate the financial advantages to the neighborhood schools. And so it would cost us, if we continued to bus kids all around town to their individual neighborhood schools, it would cost us about $184,000 additional, as opposed to providing those services in each elementary school. So we're going to have before and after school daycare services in each of our buildings, elementary buildings. We've got 4 companies that are finalists, and we actually have presentations tomorrow to pick the company, the vendor, to do that. We don't want to take that on ourselves at this time. We've got enough going on to get into an area that we don't do day in and day out. And so we're gonna hire a vendor to provide that service at each elementary school. It's kind of a big deal. When I first got here 9 years ago, I remember talking to George Curry, the superintendent at the time, why don't we do before and after school daycare? And his comment to me at that time was, why do we want to compete with the local daycares? We've got quality businesses in town that do a good job, and they do a good job. So I just kind of backed off of that thought, and it was kind of taboo, but at this point in time, we will bus to and from the residents to the neighborhood school in that boundary, right? Because that makes sense when you think about the neighborhood schools concept. Well, there's no daycare in the north at the Eagle Heights Elementary School. There's nothing there. So anyway, long story short, that was a big step for us, for a school district to get into that realm. We didn't want to. We tried to stay away from it, but we did a survey this spring, and our families and communities really would like for us to do that. It was clear in that survey. So stepping forward there, Eagle Heights is on track. It is on time, is ahead of schedule and under budget, which is what everybody likes to hear. It is going to be thank you, Jack. It's going to be a really, really nice school. We're really, really excited about that building and what the facility can provide for the programming. At the high school campus, you guys know the track has been completed. The 8 classroom expansion is done. We're ready to start on the punch list for that. And we're actually going to start moving some programs that direction to get them out of the way for some other renovation projects. So that's gone well. The cafeteria expansion will basically double the size of the high school cafeteria. And I was in that space Sunday night, and it's good to go. It's going to be a staging area, though, we're going to renovate 2 of the science labs. Just found out today, bad news, we've got some asbestos issues in some of the spaces we're going to renovate there. And of course, we have a contingency budget for, that kind of stuff, but you never like to hear that. It delays the project schedule and of course increases the expense. So that's all going very well. Maple, they did some work at Maple over spring break in lighting and some ceiling tile replacements. If you've been over there near Maple Elementary, you've seen that they're starting to extend the drive up to Maple Lane. I've been working with Jack on that, and that'll be, there's some residents that aren't real happy about that particular situation.
I think they're understanding now.
Coming around, yeah.
They understand what the traffic impacts will
Traffic
be.
implications will maybe not be as negative as they originally.
I think it's gonna be positive for them.
But, that building, guys, 1956 was that building's opening, and $5 million going into that building. The bones are really, really strong and solid, and it's going to be really, really nice. You can see just from the lighting and ceiling upgrades that took place over spring break in certain parts of that building, that it's really, really, really going to be nice. So, lots going on. We are reinventing ourselves, really, is what it feels like as the superintendent. And that's exciting, and people are on board with that and moving forward in terms of staff. But it's also kind of unnerving, a little bit. It's just, I've taught next door to this person for 20 years, and now she's going there and I'm going here, and so it's kind of scary, I think, for a lot of people. But everybody's, pretty much embracing what the future. We'll look back on this day 20 years from now, the day we went to neighborhood schools, and remember that.
Okay.
That's my report.
Okay, next item here is review the strategic plan goals 5 and 6.
And if you all may recall, we were discussing 1 and 2 in the first meeting, 3 and 4 in the second meeting, 5 and 6 now. It's on the agenda to discuss 1 through 6 if there's anything that needs to go back and forth. And the process we're going through now is this working? Do we need to change it? If so, what? And go from there. So this is a EDC specific. You guys get to discuss and figure out where you want to go, what you want to do. Some of it I can tell you we haven't hit yet. We just, from a staffing level, we're not in that position, and we're moving backwards a bit on that and getting some stuff reorganized. We'll have to figure that out.
Got a lot of scratching on my paper.
Well, you're the chairman, so.
You are tonight, Andy.
So I guess I'll start commenting in response to. So in goal 5, that's basically create and maintain a program to foster a sense of community. Main bullet is an integral part of the community's economic development is a sense of community created with the public and private infrastructure and programming activities to foster community pride. The first sub-bullet needs to be updated, I think. That was the creation of the community investment program.
It's no longer called that.
I want to call that, and we created it.
Yeah.
So I would think we need to say something like continue to support. What is it called now again? I forget now.
You had to ask.
So does Jack. That program that we created.
Yeah. It's written down in that office in there, and I just don't, it's CIRP.
Name though.
Yeah,
The grant program, right?
yeah,
The grant reimbursement program, right?
yeah,
Reimbursement.
yeah.
I would recommend we rewrite this to
Yeah, to change that.
Like that, continuation of that. We need to add the improvement words, and I mean, I think it, you know, we got it kicked off last year, we got a second year going here.
Yep.
Improvements have been made, you know,
So
from experiences, so.
continue to support and just, I think we could just get rid of maybe the first few words of this line.
Yeah,
Continue to develop and support
the, whatever the name is, program
the program.
to assist. Creators should be designed primarily, just delete that.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think something that we could add, I don't know if it exists, or I'm guessing it doesn't, but I think we could create a handbook of best practices that, and we'll call it whatever you want, but give something to those people that come, they want to do something. It's like, this is what has worked for other people and hasn't, and who you talk to, and just basically some information to help them out.
A festival how-to list kind of a thing, or?
Kind of, you know, and like I said, best practices, for somebody that's trying to do this for the first time, I mean, it would be really, even if they have a great idea, that's fine, but if we could.
There are issues like traffic control.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
but if we could give them basically the collective knowledge that the city has had by seeing people succeed and fail and where those things are, what differences there might be, that would just be, I think the same thing applies for somebody that's moving a business to town.
The streamlining and give them the, here's how you do it here.
Yeah, I think there's a how-to, and like who you need to talk to and what are some of the key points. But if there's other things that have been learned through the years, I'd let people learn the hard way, because it just benefits the community if those things go off better. So that's why I say that, you know, a handbook
And as I understand this wouldn't necessarily be one of the bullet points under the goal, but more of a,
Addition.
and it would be a staff-driven, here's what we need to do to help this process. Yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily be in writing, it would be this is a recommendation to how to run a festival.
and whether it's a point on here to develop it until we have, and then maintain it as a bullet going forward. I don't know how we want to get it in there, but I think it would be
Is this similar to what we talked about last time with the farmers and makers market on that kind of checklist of things that they kind of needed to do? Is that something
Right,
similar?
and that's what I was gonna say. Some of this, I think we're fairly close to having. We just don't have enough people to go out and sell it. Or to make it look like it wasn't done by somebody who doesn't know how to do it. From
I think we know what we
Right.
need for requirements for
Right.
someone, especially if they're applying for a grant. But I think,
Rusty, yeah.
Looked right through. Yeah. I put words in your mouth here, but I think you're probably taking that another step where people have had experience or whatever, for things that may not necessarily, may help it go smoother, even though it'd be a little bit beyond the requirements that the city might have for a
Right.
program like this or for other.
Well, and
policy.
in part, I think it's, here's what the city, if you're gonna use a city facility, here's those steps. If you're gonna use a private facility, say you're doing it at Rusty's, here are the steps, here's what you need to be looking out for. If you're gonna have alcohol, these steps, you know.
Yeah, and then I would take the next, so those are the, you know, the checklist or things that you absolutely must do to comply. And then the the thing where we could do something a little above and beyond would be, you know, just kind of the best practices. You know, people that have had a great outcomes, these are the kinds of things that they did, these are the kinds of things they avoided. And where people have gone awry, these are kind of some of the pitfalls, you know, that you want to avoid. So I just think it would really help.
Maybe we can mine that data from a feedback survey or something.
Right, yeah,
from-
talk to the people who've done it.
From the event organizers that say, you know, so what were the issues that you had and what did you learn and, you know,
Or the commonalities in the form, the way that the form's filled out. You see that they use this company on this one, and this one. This guy had problems and tried to use this guy. So you go to commonality and you withdraw that information, contact information, put that on a list. Hey, here's a list of known providers for the services for this, for your event, to help it run smoother.
Yeah,
so how would something like this get executed? I mean,
well, it ultimately have to come through staff, generally, to start getting that data or creating the forms for review by you all and go from there.
Yeah, I'd say a generated feedback, what would make this easier. That would help us go back to exactly what
Right.
we're trying to do, is foster that relationship.
Because there's so many different types of events. I mean, there's a, you know, you're starting at a low spectrum events all the way up to the Nehemiah Fest.
Right.
I mean, the things that work for this event may not work for this event. That's almost gonna have to be done on a case-by-case deal when we're doing the review process of that application. Is, hey, we've seen this work, but hey, you might rethink this through. We're just giving you ideas. You don't have to change them, but we've seen this work. It might be better on a case-by-case deal.
Right.
Because
Well-
if you start putting guidelines for this event and then this extravagant event.
That's why I
just
say it
think
would be
that's
a
broad
more
spectrum.
general form than what you're thinking. I would say,
Yeah.
these are helpful, what do you call it? These are helpful vendors or helpful,
Recommended vendors by previous,
yeah,
because
Do we
that,
even- do we even just connect them to, you know, hey, here's someone who does a like-size event, here's, you know, make a connection for them, so they've got someone to
that
talk to.
too, yeah, we could connect those people together.
well,
You're doing something down in the square, and it's called something, and this one's called something, but they're technically, when it's all said and done and they're going on, they're kind of the same event. When they're down on the square, they're all kind of the same. It's a gathering of people.
well, and I'd throw out the business-to-business contact type stuff. It's not technically, they're not fostering a sense of community using the investment program, but Rusty's got his business working with Soiree. You're bringing people in to the community, working together to hopefully foster some community pride associated with it. So, I mean, there are alternatives to a festival at downtown or,
I think it's probably gonna start small, and it's just gonna
Sure.
kind of blossom, whatever we're trying to get at, this list of helpful, I keep calling them vendors, but
yeah.
like the traffic control stuff,
And here's who you talk to, right, and I think a lot of this is a kind of a exit interview scenario when each festival finishes. What would you recommend, or how does this, you know, what were your,
mind, what happened?
right, was this a good event? What did you miss? What would you have liked to have seen? What would you have done differently? What would you like to expand on? That kind of stuff.
I mean,
And do it while the iron's hot.
right. I mean, even something as simple like, well, you don't want to plan parking on the grass in this area in April because it's probably going to be muddy, and then you need to have if it rains, you need to have this kind of backup plan, whatever. But
Right.
There's different things.
Size of the event, location of the event, we'll take those into consideration.
Yeah, but, you know, how great would it be to save somebody from having a disaster, and then they don't make any money, maybe they don't pay everybody they're supposed to pay, maybe they don't come back again. versus if we could have just told them a few things that, you know, especially if you go, oh, well, I knew that.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't we share that? Because that's just, and then people will remember that, hey, you know, Smithville really helped us avoid some problems, told me some things I never thought of.
Well, and I think
We're
the
gonna
more,
come back.
I think the more important thing is the people that come to the show, the festival or whatever, you know, if it's a complete disaster, they're going to remember, oh, Smithville Festival I went to was a complete disaster. So we want to avoid that too.
So I'm sure it'll evolve into, something much bigger than it starts out with, but if we have it flagged somewhere in here to work on that. Do we need to vote or anything on things like that, or how we?
Ultimately, I think what we're going to do is, got notes, I've been keeping notes of all this stuff. I'll make I'll create a revision, it'll probably be the May one. April will go back again, and then May, is when we'll do that. And by then, we'll hopefully have the new city administrator on, and that process, is gonna have to start with the budget shortly thereafter. Budget will be rolling real soon.
So then, we probably want to, part of that is to get a feedback form, so we can gather the information too, and just keep continuous improvement on it.
Right. And that becomes integral to do this stuff each year. What worked, what didn't work, what do we have to expand on, what do we have to cut? So, yeah, I can get that.
That's helpful. It says create a volunteerism program that coordinates with community groups and individuals who seek to volunteer their skills and time for those areas with persons in need of assistance. And, you know, I don't know, thinking about that, I mean, there's a lot of groups, you know, in Smithville that do great volunteer work, you know, and helping the community out. I'm just wondering if there's a need for this.
I think it probably could be rewarded more than, I don't know if we need to get rid of it as much as we need to reward it.
Is it connecting folks to those groups?
Yeah,
You know, use existing resources?
hate to use the
You know,
word.
is this,
Yeah.
Well, I think the way it's written here is like, how do we get the groups to work together on common?
What I see here is
Work well on their own, I mean, so.
how I read it is they want, or this originally was written with maybe a feeling of creating another entity. I don't think we need to create another entity, as much as we need to know who and what's available throughout the surrounding city. Lions Club, the Rotary Club, the
government service organization?
Yeah, CAC, the dog park people.
right, putting all this information together, and whenever either something happens,
People are interested in getting one
the
involved.
churches, I mean, the churches all have, around here, have a huge supporting network within themselves.
So like a clearinghouse.
Yeah,
You change
I
that
hate to use
create
the
word
word,
to
but it's a
maintain.
list,
Yeah.
a list of these things,
yeah.
Well, I think you have a list of what
and
needs
fresh
are.
contact information.
You know, like we need to,
That's more important than anything.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
and
like-
maybe a registration system, so that,
Yeah,
that.
and you could do
that-
a card, you know,
Yeah.
an information card.
Well,
yearly
no, I
update.
mean, for example, go out and we're trying to create a clearinghouse of people that use volunteers and can, and do it, so we know that the Lions Club, the Kiwanis, all the clubs, the churches, whoever, and what their kind of skill sets they're looking for. Then we can put on, and that'd be easy enough to make an application for them, with that information for people to sign up. Here's what my skills are. Can you get this information to those folks? And then, here you go.
And then
Contact the
pulling
Methodist Church.
information, or pulling those people to come help
Mm-hmm.
at events or at,
Whatever is needed.
Yeah, I think there's.
It's a two-way street.
If somebody has a project that needs to be done, let's say we want to do a picnic shelter at Heritage Park or something. We need somebody, and we're looking for a volunteer or donations or whatever, a place to put that out there. We're trying to do this project for this benefit to the community. And then you have the flip side of that is we're trying to, somebody that's looking for volunteers to do, like Shop with a Cop is looking to put on something and they need volunteers. So you might have a project that you're trying to get some, like Lions Club, to adopt the project because it's a need, but nobody's like taking it on as their project.
And I had a group that I'd never heard of come into the restaurant the other day, and we actually had to move them over to the event space because they were having a meeting about their finances as a group, and I'd never heard of them before. I thought it was a group of people that could just sit in the restaurant and have their little get-together, but they were talking about a business meeting, and I quickly moved them over to the event site so they could have their privacy, and it was for at-risk kids or something, or
Kids Rock?
it might have been, I don't know. I had a meeting a couple weeks ago.
I'm
But we
wondering-
need to put those out there so that we know that they're available in this concentrated area.
Is this part of the website, chamber website, that kind of joint one that
Could be
you
either.
talked about?
Could be any of them,
You know,
as long as it's someplace.
a lot of them, I know a lot of the service organizations are members of the chamber.
Yeah.
Is it there?
They might have the information.
I mean, I've got one I need help with now. There's a stream in Woods Court that needs to be cleaned out because some rocks that got dumped into it. I need someone who wants to chip in and help out and go down and pull some rocks, and now that it's a little bit warmer and you're gonna catch your desk, getting your feet cold.
First the test.
Not all that much warmer, but.
Warmer, you get some more.
It will be by the time he gets all his volunteers over there.
Yeah, so I think that we need, it would be good to have that website to list, projects that need to be adopted. We need volunteers for a specific project, and then just organizations that you can join, a lot of different things that we can. Yeah, if somebody wants to volunteer and help you out,
Sure, someone will volunteer for the right price.
somebody,
I work for free though.
Yeah. Well, and to be quite frank, there are church entities that do that stuff for folks in town that are not in a position to pay
Just
for
bought
it.
a house in town.
No, did you? Well, but for folks that aren't able to afford it, I mean, they'll build handicap ramps or,
Physically able to do the job.
yeah, or physically unable.
I am
Yeah.
the ladders,
Yeah, we had, and we work with them out of my department to expedite the permitting, so, yeah, here you go. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly, based upon the comments, I can tweak that language a little bit for the next two meetings.
yeah,
Okay?
Anything on that? There are two other sub-bullets on there. There's a create a fundraising initiative using private and public sources for economic and community development purposes.
Through coordination with and some assistance with Dan, Parks Department has a new sponsorship program. So people can sponsor, for example, movie night. It's fully sold out, by the way. Did you know that?
Good.
Yeah. All the sponsors have already, they pay a certain amount of money and it becomes the Chops Night at the, so it's a, and
It's always Chops night, because I bought all the equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he's right across. And when it gets cold, they come in.
The structure changed from last year because I sponsored one last
Yeah,
year.
yeah, and and yeah, they actually have a pamphlet, and here it is, and they kind of did a real quick, Leah helped them on some of it as well, but it was one of the, here we go, sold out, like that. So movie night's fully funded,
That's great.
in about 2 weeks.
Is that like a one-off for the movie night, or is this?
Well, that's how they started it. No, they're continuing to expand it, because from our standpoint, in looking at the community development, it's the ties to parks. ties to get people to come in and be in a community. Whether it's baseball, softball, et cetera. I mean, we've had people donate money to help underprivileged kids who can't afford to pay for that system. So we've got that structure already set up inside City Hall. They've actually created a separate 501c3, similar to what the police officers did for their Shop with the Cop. They've created one out of the Parks guys to create their own so when people want to donate money and get the tax write-off, they can do it through the 501c3. We don't need that if it's a church entity who's going to be wanting to give a check for something. They can do that directly to the city because they're not going to need a tax write-off. So we have both options available. One's quick, the other one takes a little longer to process.
So from the EDC side, is there something?
Yes, well, some of it becomes a function of getting the word out a little better.
Well, it sounds like that could all be part of the same, you know, kind of community hub or whatever you want to call it, where, you know, it's like we have community events that need sponsorship. And
Right.
it's not any different than really volunteers, community events that need volunteers to work.
And we do have, under the umbrella of the Kansas City area, regional one, a community foundation that if somebody wants to.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's been three or 4 years. I don't know that they've ever taken anything, but ultimately you can donate through that Kansas City foundation, and I think it's based out of the Mid-America Regional Council headquarters. But that Smithville Community Foundation, similar to the schools or whatever, would be somebody wants to put in their will, for example. I'll give $10,000 to the Smithville Community Foundation for park purposes, to build this kind of a situation. We have that structure, it's just not been staffed very well and advertised a lot. We haven't tried to sell it. Yeah. So we have several of these things out there, they're just not showing a lot of results yet, but this is the first year we've had this in place too, so.
So does this one stay the same, creative fundraising initiative? Does it change to, foster new fundraising, help with new fundraising initiatives to get the word out?
Expand fundraising initiatives using?
That's a good word, expand.
Support and expand.
So I don't know if we or the city need to be necessarily creating new fundraising, maybe the city a little bit, but we need to help, foster, mentor, and expand those fundraisings to get them out to farther reaches.
Maybe some tweaking on this one.
Yeah, I will certainly take emails to assist in tweaking that one, or any of these, if you guys have thoughts or.
I first emailed you guys last week, said I wasn't gonna be here. Now I'm here.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
I was gonna see if you guys were gonna talk bad about it.
Baseball
Now I'm here.
insert tonight?
yeah.
Fields are too wet.
Okay, the next one on this goal is expand economic development programming with various community partners that focuses on objectives of this goal to the point that a full-time economic development coordinator is warranted. I kind of felt this was like a catch-22 thing here. You can't expand without time and people. And so you almost need that person in time to actually expand. So, I mean,
Right.
I don't know.
And ultimately, that position, I think, needs to be reevaluated on exactly what, revised and reevaluated.
Broad
Yeah,
position.
to focus on what the real economic development plan and focus would be on moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, as on a number of these, as we get a new city administrator in and some of the backgrounds that they have, I think they'll be able to help kind of narrow and provide some direction and
Different ideas from different communities often.
Yeah, I viewed that as basically we're gonna build a big enough to-do list that we gotta hire somebody to, yeah.
I mean, you're the de facto economic development director, right?
Yeah. I'm the director of development, so I do both, yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, that's you wear right now.
Yeah.
4 or 5,
Yeah.
10.
If it's cold, I wear a beanie. If it's not, I wear a Royals cap, but yeah. So, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, I guess we'll just leave this one.
Yeah, I think it needs to, I think everyone agrees it needs to be tweaked. The new city administrator is gonna have to be significantly putting fingerprints on that.
Sounds like that person needs to be the economic development coordinator as part of one of their things. It's just, I think that needs to be a person that's intertwined in the inner workings of the city, versus just a standalone person that goes and grabs from everybody, technically. But we'll see, that's up for discussion later.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we had an economic development person here before, right? How long ago was that?
10,
Is
9.
there, did that person have a job description? That could be,
Well, they were a director, so they were looking for manufacturing jobs. They were looking for the recruiting stuff of businesses under the old style economic development, where you have somebody that goes out and come here. Similar to what Kearney uses over in their economic development, what do they call that entity over there? Council. The Economic Development Council. It's a private entity created through the government, and they have land, and their director, their economic development people are out, hey, come to Kearney and do this. At this location, we got a lot for you, you can build right here.
Realtors do that too.
Yeah, right. No, they sell it, and they use the capital to then expand to buy other land. And that's kind of, I mean, the economy and the recruiting stuff changed significantly in 2007, 2008. And given where, at least all of our strategic plan and survey indicates that folks are wanting this to not be as much of a manufacturing hub as it is a community enhancement, get more retail, more entertainment, more stuff that our local citizenry can use. Now, from my perspective, I'll tell you the biggest problem we have to that is we don't have enough people here in the daytime.
Yeah.
So getting jobs here.
yeah, so
becomes-
I think you can, it's real easy to want all that, but if there's not enough business here to support it, it's just, won't work in the long term. So that's why I think, yeah, we need jobs here where people work and good jobs, whether it be office type jobs or manufacturing jobs, whatever.
Right.
To make that happen. Then the other stuff just comes as, because people are smart and they're like, well, if there's 500 people working up there when they get off work at lunch, then they need a place to eat, so let's put in some restaurants.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll just happen because it will. So are you saying that they just, communities aren't having a person do that anymore?
No, they are. It becomes a function, as I was indicating, if it's a community that's looking to expand manufacturing, and that's one of their primary goals, that's what the old-time economic development folks do. So to the extent that our survey stuff indicated that wasn't where folks wanted us to go, I don't think that's why we've leaned that way. I mean, when they pulled the plug back in 2008, it was just pulling the plug because of the economy. But, so,
Whether it's manufacturing or service oriented,
right,
Logistics.
right. And that's, I think Alderman Blumker makes a very good point. I think that's one of the issues that, if you read the profile for the position for city administrator, that's one of the issues that the board is currently looking for, is somebody who has that background, has that chops as it relates to economic development, so we can expand that. You're supposed to say thank you. That was a good one.
He needs my facial.
Stay tuned.
Facial
Next
expression.
time we get together, we'll have a little bit more information on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So letting that ride, that point just ride until it
Yeah.
becomes more obvious is good.
Well, and I think the other thing is we're gonna, hopefully by the next meeting, if not April, May, we're gonna have someone else sitting in this meeting as well, to, at least if not introductions, here's where I think we need to go kind of stuff, so what we can do and how we can get where you guys want to go. Okay?
The last goal is goal 6, to enhance communications and facilitate economic development. And basically, we remember, we put this in here because we had communications and not every other goal, so we brought communications out to try to emphasize the needs on that. I gotta say, I don't think we're doing very well on goal 6. We have a lot of ideas in that. I don't know how far we've gotten in the execution of this goal. I think we can still go a long way to communicate a lot of the things that we're doing. I mean, there's stuff going on, and I'm not sure how well.
Well, I think we had a 25-minute presentation beginning of this meeting related to this communication. Marketing is communication as well. So I think that may give us a better understanding of how to get this, what our message is to get out. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is what is the direction of the message?
This is a direct goal in goal 1.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for, I mean, so we're doing something. I mean, it's like,
Right.
we're doing nothing, but I mean, I think, I just have to think back, like, we hired a communications coordinator.
Which goes back to goal 5. We need to work on that, on how we do that, yeah.
So, I mean, I think the need is very strong, it's still here, and, I think we can do better.
Do we have, I mean, in relation to these two questions, is there an opportunity for the city to hire a social media person? That's what they do, and they are well-schooled and versed in what they should and shouldn't do and all that. Just a person that does that can push some of this direct information, meeting notes, and, hey, this is our plan for whatever, more often than.
Certainly, that position can be hired. I think the harder part is that all the ideas you just said, they can do this and can do that and can do this, that has to be up front and given to the person, now go do that, versus,
I think we need someone
Help.
to generate that content from. I mean, I don't know, you said, for lack of something better to do, I come and sit in some of these alderman meetings often enough, to see a lot of great stuff go by, and then you never hear any more about what's going on with this thing or that thing. I mean, so either fell in the crack, and nobody's working on it, or things are happening and nobody's talking about it. I think there's a lot of that still going on that. So someone needs to develop the content as well as get it out on social media and other ways, and keep follow through.
And that's part of what I have pushed to get added into that website. So here's the projects that are going on, and almost.
If you have timelines, and if you have, a plan that goes out, several years even. This is
Streetscape, here's where we're at on that, so here's where it's gonna go.
And those dates are fluid, we all know, it's just, future dates are always a show.
Well, yeah, even if it said, 1 year out, 3 to 5 years out.
Right.
you know, 10
Kinds
years
of things
out.
that
I mean,
are,
at least you
expected.
kind of have an idea, like, well, that's not gonna happen anytime soon, or,
And then I think people would realize when you have a ballot issue that, let's see, food, you understand why. I mean,
Yeah.
easier. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Oh, no, and I don't disagree.
So I mean, I think
I
hiring the
think
kind of
it's,
person that can translate what's going on in board meetings into content that is acceptable to the board and also, you know, social media skills that can.
I like the link to the alderman's timeline, whatever projects are, you know, how they're moving along. I don't know necessarily what it would look like, pretty sure it could be.
There are a couple different plugins that you can put in, and I've kind of shared those, and that's one of the things I'd like to see going forward. So as we bring this new person on board, that's one of the things I want to push is, how do we highlight, and, you know, from a business standpoint, we have scorecards on, you know, green, we're on schedule, here's what it looks like, yellow, we're behind a little bit, red, we're off base, and here's the plan to correct it.
I mean, for example, I was thinking this afternoon when I was looking through this, there's a lot of talk about a priority-based budget. I don't know what the priorities are. I haven't seen anything.
Whose priorities are they?
as anything here, it's the elected officials, they set all the priorities.
Yeah, no,
So, but yeah, so
we talk-
advertising it and communicating it.
So many times I've
absolutely.
heard the words priority-based budget, but I didn't know what the priorities were. I still don't know.
Part of that for this year came out of a strategic planning session with the board. I'll tell you, going forward, I want to get the new person on and then work to add phase 2 of that, which is get the community involved in a community stakeholder conference who then helps set, here's the things that we want. And that's where some of that stuff kind of bubbles up from. 'Cause
Well, doesn't our CIP kind of drive all of that? I mean, wasn't that gathered from
Yeah,
citizen
Yeah.
input as
Yeah.
to this is what your budget priority should be,
mhm.
right?
And that's, right, end of the day, we got more wants than,
And in my time here in a decade, that's something the city's gotten much better at, is being strategic with their expenditures of dollars.
yep,
I've seen things shift around on that list and.
yeah. Sometimes you have to.
Right.
Yeah, right. Well, and I'll give you a good example on the CIP list. Sidewalks were intended out on Second Creek from city limits all the way up to Loman Road. However, we have a bridge that may be failing. So it wouldn't do much good to have sidewalks out there if you couldn't go anywhere on the road.
Right, so that's a shift.
So the board in that scenario changed the focus to,
Explanation of all
yeah,
that.
yeah, right. So that was but that was
To
2
your
or 3.
point about communication.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, to highlight it, right. That bigger is that isn't an economic development deal, that's a general civic government deal. I think Alderman Blumker has been hitting that, driving that engine a bunch.
Trying
So,
to.
yeah. As long as you keep hitting the same beat, people all of a sudden start moving to that.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example, you know, a lot of talk on community center. Well, that funding's not gonna come from this room. So, you know, that group needs to get together and say, okay, here's the funding mechanism that can make that go. You know, here's the options, you know, very power one type of.
Yeah,
This is just a,
some of it has to be grassroots. Yeah, you know, grassroots doesn't start at the top.
I
though.
think the people that want it will get enough fire lit and they want to.
Well, we had over 300 people answer a survey and said, here's the things we'd like to see. So.
Those
now-
300 people, find 300 more.
And they've got 2 things.
this is just kind of a pet peeve of mine, and if you look through the school district strategic plan, you might, my guess is you'll find some of the same kind of language, but when we say maintain, and improve, you know, maintain, in strategic planning doesn't seem very strategic, you know, just status quo. I think that language should be stricken from, and again, full disclosure, if you look at our plan, you'll probably see some similar language. But, you know, we've we've got a lot of people that come together to draft the same kind of language as well. Just my 2 cents.
Sure.
Status quo shouldn't be part of it.
All right, we'll just get rid of it, completely say improve,
Yeah.
communicate to parents.
Any other comments on the suggested changes tonight? Any other goals and
We do have some public comment, I'm sure. The folks from Spire are here.
I saw a couple of Spire vehicles out there.
You get 2 Spire folks.
Our
Brian.
next item is public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yeah.
Want to speak to the group?
We've been here for a while. Very interesting, by the way. I have a marketing background, so that was very interesting. I'm Christy Beard. I am residential development for your area, and Pasadena handles the commercial growth. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of our vehicles around here. I know that I worked with Wayne Kruger at the school to make sure we were able to serve the school. And with that, we were also able to go into of the existing all-electric subdivisions, Rollins,
Wildflower.
Rollins Landing, and Wildflower. With that, I also have had several homeowners reach out to me from Harborview. Correct me if I say anything wrong.
No, you're right.
And then,
Trade
in addition
winds.
to that, I've also, worked with him to make sure, we're able to put remaining lots on Rock Creek. So you'll see that we're going in from the back side of Rock Creek. Eventually, our main down 169 will tie together. We came this evening, really, Jack had invited us just to kind of hear about some of the growth, and we're obviously feeling it. I actually live in St. Joseph and handle everything north of the river, and I'm amazed at the growth. Rocking and rolling, keeping me busy for sure on the residential side. And I know there's some commercial projects that we'll be supporting. But really, we just wanted to stop by and see what's going on. I know there's some new residential projects coming up. We're trying to stay in the loop of upcoming projects because the growth is so rapid for the area. Just, the system here actually ties in over to the Shoal Creek system. So I know we're doing things to ramp up on our end and improve our system to be able to serve the growth because it is
Is
I
there,
already know
is there a
the folks.
main line up through there already?
They're, part of what's going on that she was talking about, supporting the future growth, that's the work going on.
But it's
on
not there
commercial.
yet?
What's that?
Is there a main line up through that area, or is it coming, it's not there yet, or?
We have completed the main extension, I think, yeah, up to the school's complete, Wildflower is complete,
Rollins is mostly done too.
Rollins, I believe, is complete, I'd have to check and see if they gas that up, but I'd say like within
Does that come from the south or the north? Or?
Well, no, we've got a lot of gas in town already.
Yes.
But right now, in front of the school, on commercial, they're putting in a giant line, 12-inch. And it's gonna go from that thing on, just south of 92 on commercial, you can see all the gas line, it's going from there, and it's gonna go up to, this first version is going to Hospital Drive, and now they're gonna start next week, had a meeting today, starting over here at Mill Street, and go all the way back up and connect to that, and then from Mill Street, they're gonna run straight down under the river, and eventually get up on 169, and then it's gonna go all the way up to 188th Street to give that additional gas. 12 inches, a 12-inch, that's a big gas line. I mean, and they're gonna have to go under some even bigger ones that go under the lake, but they're transmission lines and not supply lines, so. So they're moving ahead, getting the stuff ready, because I think their focus right now is up on the north side. You guys have a lot of gas already on the south side.
We do. What our main concern is now is for the growth of Smithville. We want to make sure, like she said, they connect to Shore Creek. We don't want to drain the line, so they're gonna upgrade the lines. Eventually, it might be done at the end of this year. Definitely it's gonna be done like.
Right.
It's gonna continue on, once, like that part over here, we're trying to find out what it is. She said all this.
Right.
Dirk Talley has the project Whiskey Ridge, which is actually, off of 169, and kind of got to go back and connect it. We were able to service, that subdivision as well, which I talked to, residents who purchased a lot, as a business owner here from him recently, but, that's another, area that we were not in, that we were able to serve, so we're just continuing to follow our existing line, and with that, we're trying to get in front of the projects to make sure we understand what the load is, and that we're able to serve,
And
And with that, we do have rebates available on our website for residential homeowners like yourselves, or, commercial as well, and then we offer rebates for builders. So a lot of homeowners don't realize rebates for furnaces and water heaters are available, and that's something that helps during that conversion process. And
Sure.
upgrades. As well as working a lot of.
Thank you. Somebody's at my house.
Wildfire, a lot of propane customers reach out and convert.
yeah, because the burners are different if you're not aware. Natural gas and liquid propane they're not compatible, not at all. Yeah, so you'll burn yourself up real quick.
We have a process, we walk the customers through and kind of standard, of course, they work with the plumber, but that's what I do, I try to work with the customer and guide them on the next steps and what the process is, because it's your own homeowners.
Yeah.
This isn't the field. Process start to finish.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. Yeah.
Okay, next item is new business, any new business? You got stuff?
Yeah, so the Missouri Ride Guide, is coming out again shortly. Since the city, be part of that. I decided I'd do it myself. Anybody wants to donate? I paid $1,200 for this. And I tried to, mention some of our local businesses. So, I got in the text, it mentions, the Biker Brunch and Blues with that soiree. That's near the beginning, and at the end, I've got the, Farmers and Makers Market, and I mentioned Chops and Nellie's there. because their Chops, Nellies, and the downtown things are all right there together. I just, as far as the points of interest, it's all under 11. But I had put some of the other ones on there individually that were a little more spread out, so people would know where to find different things. So this one will be coming out in the next couple of months. And if any of you guys want copies, just let me know, and I'll try and get you some to hand out at your businesses, and I'll bring some down to the chamber.
Those go out pretty good.
Yeah. I can get you some. So then, the other thing that I'm trying to do on the bicycle side of the business, I mentioned earlier, Wednesday night, there's a club called Earth Riders that has rides out at Smoking Davy Trailhead. They're mountain bike guys, mostly guys, there's some gals too. But we're trying to do a family bicycle night on Thursday nights. And I would like to do it, well, the mountain bike trails and a lot of those, the paved trails there go in between Smoking Davy and Sailboat Cove. The problem with Smoking Davy Trailhead is it's easy and downhill when you leave the parking lot, but when you're tired and have to go back, it's uphill.
It's not downhill both ways.
No, it's not downhill both ways. I tried to get them to change that. But if it's gonna be a family bike ride, and there's gonna be kids and people that are not in the greatest of shape, and having to finish uphill is not gonna, you're not gonna finish your ride in the best way. Plus, there's not the facilities that there are over at Sailboat Cove. There's right now, with just the mountain bike guys, they pretty much fill up that parking lot on Wednesdays. So if it grows, then, there's no picnic tables, there's not really room to put up tents or anything to have cookouts and whatever. But the problem with Sailboat Cove is they want to charge every vehicle that goes in there. Well, that's for people using the lake. It's not really for people using the bicycle trails. So it's not really appropriate, I don't think, to charge them to come there and go ride bikes with their kids for a couple hours. So I don't know how to try and approach the county or whoever it is to get, whether we can get passes for those people, if they still want to do something, or if they'll just not charge people money if they're just bringing bikes. Obviously, they're not going to have a boat on the back of their car. They're going to have a couple bicycles. But I think it's, it's worth doing out there.
Several Cove by Paradise?
Yeah, it's over there by Paradise. So basically, on the map, the trails kind of go from number 5 to number 6. And they're in that, in between there.
There's another, there's a trail on the end of my block on 60th Street.
Well, there's plenty of other ones, but the mountain bike trails, because we wanted to open it up for everybody, all kinds of riding. The mountain bike trails are all between number 5 and number 6. So, given that 5 doesn't have, it's really just a flat parking lot with a couple bathrooms, which is nice, at least that they're there. But they have better facilities at Sailboat Cove for bathroom and everything else.
What do they charge?
I think it's $5 a vehicle.
That was the issue, the restaurant, so you had to pay in the restaurant.
Yeah, and then they give you a rebate or something on your food. But
Could reach out to Nicole Brown.
Assistant County Administrator Nicole Brown.
okay,
I've taken that all the way to Rohrbach, and they won't, which is with the Corps, and they will not absolutely do one thing, period. They said they will not set a precedent, so that we've fought that for a really long time.
A little behind the times.
You're going through the deal there. I mean, it's,
I know in our barbecue contest, they work with us. So if you're going in at a certain hour and,
Yeah, we want to do it on Thursday.
What's the phone call?
So Nicole Brown, the Assistant County Administrator.
Yeah,
So I just look up Clay County's number.
Yeah, and
That's her.
there's someone under her, and I'm blanking on her name, who handles that, but
Yeah,
Okay,
Nicole's a good entry point, so.
okay.
You can tell her I suggested, so.
Anything else? Business?
Yeah, I've got some new business. Last week, or last meeting we had some issues on some people not being able to hear. And I'm wondering if maybe at the beginning of some of these meetings, if we shouldn't, maybe whoever is administering a meeting, whether it be a council meeting or whether it be whatever, and I don't even know if this recommendation should come from here, but if we can't make some sort of recommendation, does anybody, I think you mentioned that we do have some hearing aids or something for people. I'm wondering if maybe we ought to not mention that at the beginning of the meeting, or maybe ask those people, if they need to be relocated, maybe to a front seat or something. Those people actually ended up in my business. They were still just about as fired up as they was here. If we do have that in place, and I told them, I said, next time you're at a meeting, I'm there, ask, we'll do our best to accommodate, but maybe we should be asking that question at the beginning of a meeting, just, maybe those people don't want to speak up, or maybe they are not gonna ask for help, maybe we need to be asking that.
Yeah, or put a sign out as you walk in and have someone available.
yeah.
And the second thing I had, and I spoke with the mayor about this, we need to maybe get I like to look at the information before our meetings. If we have a deal like we had last meeting, I think that would be only fair if we could get that information ahead of time. That wasn't, that was on the farmer's market deal, where we kind of was thrown under the gun under that a little bit. I think
thought
it'd
it was
be
in the packet, wasn't it?
not to where, it was not to that extreme, I don't think so.
I was not surprised by that.
Do what?
I was surprised by that, too.
Yeah, I mean, it just,
know that, but
it really, we're a volunteer group. We try to do our best, and when you're thrown under the gun, I mean, it reflects us.
And this wasn't in the packet for this, for tonight, was it?
No, you didn't have it until 6:08.
But I don't think it's such a big deal unless it's when it's a conflict. There was a conflict there, we wasn't aware that there was gonna be a conflict, we had no way of preparing for that conflict. That's not something that we had voted on originally. That's not something that we had asked to get changed. And I spoke with the mayor about that, and I think he kind of sees my point on that, but you're thrown under the gun. I mean, now the next conversation we're gonna have is gonna be when that customer walks into your business, or walks into your business, And you wasn't here, or maybe you was
No, I
here.
wasn't.
But that's just a touchy subject. It would be nice if we could maybe figure out a way that we could have that information ahead of time. I think you probably, if you think back on that, you can, I mean, there was a lot of it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of emotions. There was a lot of emotions, and we really wasn't prepared to deal with them, I don't think. I mean, if we could have had maybe a little insight, we could have maybe dealt with that a little bit differently.
Well, and I'll speak up and say that when I requested it got brought to this committee, it was, hey, we need to have it approved and relatively quickly so it can kind of get put together, and it wasn't a hot button issue. And through a series of unfortunate events, to borrow the term, it suddenly became a
It
very
spiraled
hot
out.
button issue.
It spiraled out of control that day, didn't it?
It did, and, there are a variety of things that kind of created that. And so my apologies to this committee, because that's not what it was intended for, and, I think everyone handled it well, and we worked through it and got to a proper solution, but, I asked for it to come to here, so that it could get done in the short time frame that they had, because the board wasn't gonna be able to deal with it as quickly as we were gonna be able to here. And because of some other things that happened that day, it got ugly, so my apologies, but,
It wasn't, I don't know if you recall, it wasn't in the packet, but it wasn't.
It
when
wasn't,
Came to the meeting.
There was no way it was going, other than an email or a phone call.
yeah, it's saying, oh, by the way, the wheels fell off.
Yeah, I mean, we just didn't know that the wheel fell off, so we didn't know to bring a jack, and that was just
Right.
really, that was really,
Yeah.
and that's,
Yeah.
to put it nicely, I mean, we didn't know that, and I mean, I know they're watching now, and everybody's watching, and that's cool, but they have to understand that that wasn't decided amongst us. we had to put the finishing touches on it, if you will, and
We had to learn about it first.
yeah, first we had to learn about it, and then we had to put the finishing touches on it, and that's tough. I mean,
Right.
you know, as a business owner, I mean, it's tough because now you didn't get a chance to research anything, you know?
I think my wife brought it up to me just a few hours before the meeting, that this was going on, and that's all the research time I got on it. She kicked me out the door and said, go in there and make it right. But man, good luck.
But that's all I have. I really would like if we could figure out something on that, but, on the deal. I mean, it just, you know, I would assume that they'd sit in the front row just like this gentleman did here, but, you know, so he could pay attention, but apparently they don't, and, you know, is what it is.
Anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Voice vote, unanimous. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that's still on, unless it failed, and I don't know if it failed.
This guy coaches baseball here.
My first go around.
No, if you need any tips, he'll put you through the ringer.
And it was like,
He's also still bombing to change the last day of school.